Sorry.
Icon, and it came back.
Um, was somebody in the middle of speaking when we got, or are we at the end of the questions?
Sarah was almost finished, I think, but I lost her.
I
Craig,
think I'm almost finished.
Craig,
Active imagination, shorthand, and research.
Okay, thank you.
Craig, you mentioned about uh, the history of Jack and the whole issue of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is something that we certainly know a lot more about today than they did after World War II. What kind of research did you do? Because you really, you've got a lot to deal with. The death of your dearest friend, the impact on you as a man, having to. It's just it was a different time. How did you get yourself? What did you do to learn about that?
Well, the production had a lot of material to give us, and then I read a book that had been written by a guy called Weary Dunlop, who was an Australian doctor who was over on the Thai-Burma Railway, and just some of the accounts, in absolute detail, you just sort of start to see, psychologically what the effect would be on these people, and with stuff like with having his friend die, and I think that stuff you can bring a little more personal. We've all lost people in our lives, so you use those sorts of things. But Bevan's very, very good at pinpointing in on some of the issues with these characters, and he always says, "Okay, guys, you need to read up on this." I think it's not giving too much away at the moment. There's a big in season 4.
Are you going to give up?
Well, there's a about communism. And that those sorts of the threats and the Petrov affair and all of those sorts of things. So, he really says swat up on that and really try and find out what the environment was like, the world was like at that point. So he's very good like that, and you just keep searching.
Yeah.
Donna Devine is in Connecticut, and she, among other things, is a PhD in some kind of Middle East studies. So she's contributes a lot. One of the big subjects of conversation is Sara and Renee and their experience in the war. And it's really captured the imagination of everybody, but it particularly speaks to those of us in the Jewish community who have had our own families touched by this. So, Donna, you're on.
Okay, I'm as Susan said, very what grabbed me, and I saw the one episode quite by accident as I was falling asleep and had the TV on in Connecticut, was Sarah's conversion to Judaism, and in a show, and I've seen the first 3 seasons now. That has some of its titles, Mikvah, L'chaim, to life, the Day of Atonement. There's obviously a Jewish theme, and an important Jewish theme that's, I think, both with regard to the period of the Holocaust, but then about Jewish identity and lots of other issues. And I was just wondering how new it was for the cast to hear about Jews as the ultimate outsider during this period, or as one of the ultimate outsiders, and what kinds of discussions the cast may have had around that subject.
Yeah, it was. I mean, certainly for myself, it was new sort of information to hear. how Jewish people were seen at that period in
Yeah.
time, and as you say, being outsiders. So, but I think a lot of it's interesting. I think Marta and obviously Ben did a lot of work around that stuff,
Yeah.
and looking at the faith and traditions and rituals and that sort of
Marta's
stuff.
been really rigorous in
Yeah.
her research, and I think she does an incredible job with, as
She
I'm
does.
sure you agree,
Yeah.
and the language and the custom and honouring that, as does obviously Ben as Renee. It's a. I don't think I've actually ever really seen it on Australian television before,
No.
where Bevan's taken it that far into the culture and into the history, and I think he's doing a great job of honouring that within the others.
And it resonates with the other characters in terms of having discussions about it with the other characters. We didn't really do a lot of that. I think what Bevan's maybe tried to do is in the writing is just show people's either misunderstanding of the faith or their acceptance, and
Or their ignorance.
or their ignorance.
Yeah.
And so he works on a very sort of subtle level in that way, and it's mirrored in things like with James, with the homosexuality and how people either accept or are ignorant of or don't accept it,
Or fearful.
so he's created these kind of these characters that do sit on the fringe in those times, and still to this day, and so it's really it's interesting how he sort of created it. But I know that Marta certainly has done her due diligence in that regard. Yeah.
I have to say, I am an observant Jew and come from, an observant family, and I am struck by how authentic the portrayal of Jewish custom really is. Often, certainly here in America, television shows always try these ways to express the Jewish experience, and it's very frustrating because, I sit and watch it and say, "Oh my gosh, under what rock did they find their technical consultants?" And watching this from the very beginning, from where Sara experiences her first Sabbath meal with the Goldbergs, and where she goes to the mikveh, to the ritual bath. And I think the most spectacular of all was Renee's funeral and
Yeah.
the subsequent.
On that, we had a director, Lynn Marie Danzy, who's an extremely passionate director about the show. And because she's not Jewish herself, we did have Jewish advisors, and she was very adamant in making sure that everything from the script right through to the protocols and how she directed it was to the T, to the exact point of what that, because they are very aware of.
Michael, who led the men at the funeral, at the wake, he was Jewish himself, and he was and they had a couple of other advisors, and they really made sure that everything was
Honored in
spot
the
on.
right way.
Yeah.
What was his name? The man who led the Kaddish?
Michael. I'm not sure of his last name, but we can.
He was only on for that
find
day.
out. He was only on for that. For that
He was
scene.
wonderful.
Well, because we've been trying very hard to find who it was that has really brought this authenticity to the series, because that whole series of scenes, first at the funeral and then at the shiva afterwards, when the 10 men walk.
But there was also there was another gentleman that was there.
Yeah.
We can find out. We can find out who
If
who
you,
the main
if you,
advisor was.
if you could, we would love to have the opportunity to hear from them. It was really quite compelling, and I think our membership, because there was so much discussion about it, was the idea that 10 people who did not know the deceased or anybody in Inverness at all would travel all those miles to participate in saying a prayer. And the fact is that it happens in the Jewish community every day, and it was really quite wonderful to see. So if you could find out and let us know, that would be great.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Diana Beaton is in Connecticut as well. Let's hear from you.
Here I am. Hi. It's
Hi,
such an honor to meet you guys. I found this on a DVD at my local library just by happenstance, and I hadn't heard of
DVD, they still have
I
those.
just watched season 1 and season 2, and then went crazy till I got 3, and of course now that's what we're all doing now, waiting for 4 to come. I'm interested about Bevan because I guess he hasn't been the writer for all of them. Could you explain who else was writing and how they differed from Bevan? And I understand he was there once and then somebody else came in
Right. Season 1 and 2. So Bevan is the creator. So for season 1 and 2, he was overseeing both those seasons and he had writers assisting with him. Well, their credits will be on the credits for each of the episodes. And then in season 3, he stepped away. Had a year off to go and pursue other projects that he was doing, and they brought on a new script team for season 3. And now that he's back from his holiday, he's basically come back and taken over for season 4, and he's pretty much written all of them bar 3. So Catherine Thompson is another wonderful writer who was brought on season 3, and she's gone over into 4. She's script producing for season 4.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What was the rest of the question? Were the differences, or?
Well, just I don't notice any difference between 3 and 1 and 2 from having him there.
Yeah.
And I think pace-wise, it's slightly different. I think there's it's hard to sort of find a term for it, but it's kind of there's more. It's faster paced. The action comes a little bit quicker, I think. But then they had a really difficult job in some ways because it's not. They haven't got the history of the show in their mind. So I think they did really well. Sort of leading out of Bevan's work, and then for Bevan to come back, as we said earlier, I just love the way he explores theme in his episodes,
and the interweaving of story as well. Season 4 is we've all heard our story arcs, and they all sound really wonderful in how they're interwoven and also still very individual as well. So it's done a wonderful
do you know
job
what's
there.
happening for the whole season, or are you aware of the whole season, or do you just get bits at a time?
We're aware of our arcs. We will go and have our chat with the producer and the script producer and discuss the general arc of what's going to happen for our character.
We don't know detail-wise in terms of how the scenes will play, but we know what the storyline is for each of our characters.
I actually did notice a difference in the writing in season 3. I saw a difference both in how the story developed, and I noticed some changes in how the dialogue was, and I found myself being surprised. Oh, really? Did Jack really say that? Or did, Carol? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have written it that way. But it did all come together, and I think everybody's excited at the idea of Bevan being back. I don't know of another show where the writer has had such a strong impact on the audience, where the fans know who the writer and creator is, and they some of our discussions where people feel like they're talking to him, it's quite extraordinary. I think he's just fabulous. Jenny, you want to type in a question? I don't know, Sarah and Craig, you know Jenny, don't you?
Yes. Yeah.
She's our fearless leader. She has set the tone for what it means to be an administrator of a fan page on Facebook, and we're delighted to be part of her circle. So she's typing in a question now.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Where do we meet?
Well, originally from New Zealand, so our acting industry is a lot smaller there, so pretty much everyone knows everyone. But we met in around the traps as actors, and then we also kind of got to know each other working on a short film together.
So yeah, that's kind of working on a professional basis, and then we, I guess, continued. We did acting classes together, and then
we had a scene study group that we were both part of that we did with about another 6 or 8 actors in New Zealand, and it was a weekly thing. So we got to know each other through that, and
Jenny, I don't see your question. Let's see if we can.
we meet.
It showed up on my screen.
Oh, it did. It didn't show up on mine. Okay, great. Do you see your question, guys?
Oh, we just answered it.
Yeah.
Oh, they just answered it. Yeah. Where did they meet? That was the question.
Okay, Jane Sullivan in Atlanta. Say hello and ask your question, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Curious about the casting process. When y'all screen tested, did you screen test with other Jacks and Carolyns? And when you got the results, did one of you find out before the other one and the other one had to sweat it out?
Well, I originally auditioned for both Jack and George, and in the casting process, so Marta had already been cast, and I went in and worked opposite Marta as both Jack and George. And I always felt a little more akin to Jack, but then obviously that was their decision. And when Brett was cast as George, it's kind of perfect, he's absolutely perfect. So I think they made the right decision. But Sarah, actually, I remember getting scripts ahead, and there was this character coming up, Carolyn, and and then Sass auditioned. And it was kind of funny story.
I mean, obviously, there's obviously the general call. So the casting director will see a number of actors, and then that will usually go to a recall, which is what you went through.
Yeah.
The recall, which is when Marta was in the audition. For Carolyn, I did the general audition and then was actually cast off that. I didn't have to go to recall. Because she turns up halfway through, so Craig had already started filming by the time I auditioned and was cast. But yeah, when we arrived for our first read-through, when Carolyn arrived, that's when they realised that we were actually...
Yeah, they didn't know, the producers, Bevan, they had no idea that we were actually married.
Thank you.
They didn't say, "Oh my goodness, they have incredible chemistry. Maybe they met before."
Yeah.
And actually, a little bit of inside gossip, when I met Bevan that day, his original plan for Carolyn, she was meant to be written out in season 2. So we're very lucky and fortunate that I'm still there.
Yeah, she does such a great job.
Sarah, I think that everybody who saw Sir Richard attack you was quite rattled by the whole thing. It's not like he was such a sympathetic character before, but it was a pretty brutal kind of attack. Experiencing rape, either real or having to portray it on screen, must be extremely troubling. Can you share with us how you were able to put yourself in that place and how it impacted you?
When I was told about that storyline at the beginning of season 3, I was obviously... what's the word for it? I was really looking forward to bringing a story of what so many women go through to light, especially of that era, but also very terrified that I wouldn't do it justice. And it was really important to honour what so many unfortunate women
and especially in numbers, have been through. And the thing with Mark is he's such a lovely, lovely guy. Mark Lee is just one of the nicest men you will ever meet in your life. So it's like, I can't even not like you. How? So, but it was just, it was a lot of, I guess the word, a lot of prep and Imagineering, and just actually in a weird, not trying to sound kooky, but in a bit of a spiritual way, of actually just asking for assistance on that energetic level of those women that have been through that, allowing myself to go to that place to where they've been. Craig was incredibly supportive through it, and he had as much, I think, trouble with of what I was going to go through as I did. And I just, that's why I do this job, is to explore human behaviour and find compassion and hopefully honour what real people experience on a daily basis. And I don't know, I just really wanted to do whatever I could to go there, and just had the support around me to do that. So I was felt very fortunate to be able to do that in a safe way. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
It does, and it is called acting. It's just a testament to your talent and understanding of your character. Will Carolyn and Jack continue to struggle with this throughout the next season?
It was a really important point when we went into season 4, and I had a chat to Bevan about that. Was I didn't want it to be everything's hunky dory a few days later. We've done like that. What often happens is so big things happen and then they move on very quickly. Thought it was very important and to honour these women that it's not just sorted out very quickly and resolved. So. Hopefully the audiences will agree with the rollout, which we've only just started, so we're only just rolling out now.
But there certainly is, the ongoing effect, for them.
For both of us, yeah.
Simon, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Simon, say hello to Sarah and Craig. Tell them where you're from, how you watch A Place to Call Home, and what your question is.
Okay. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Craig.
Hi, Simon.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, yeah. I watch in the UK. I'm in the UK and watching it on BBC. And we've just seen the end of season 3 just a couple of days ago. Just finished, and a long time to wait for the next one. But I mean, I really enjoy it. It's I think for all the reasons we've just discussed, it's the depth to go into the issues from the time, and so many of those issues are still relevant today. They might play out in a slightly different way, but the same things still go on today. My question, really, picking up on what we're saying about, obviously, you two being married, knowing each other, does that make it harder? I mean, I know it's acting, but does that make it harder in some ways to play out emotional scenes, or the sexual scenes, or anything like that? Or does it make it easier in some ways? Or I was just wondering.
I think, speaking personally, what I love about working with Craig is I don't know a harder working actor than this guy here, and we always have our house is pretty boring because it's kind of acting 24/7 in a good way, but that we really want to make the most of these scenes. We realise how fortunate we are to be working together on a show that's so well received and the characters are so beautifully written, and their germination. So we want to make the most of that, and the fact that we have a shorthand of working together. There's a innate trust there in being able to take big risks, whether it's on a vulnerability scale or on a physicality scale. It's always a little bit weird doing intimate scenes with a crew. That's always
public displays of affection. But it actually, it does. I think it makes it easier because we naturally have a connection. There's no barrier. I mean, you have to really sort of open yourself up to another actor when you're playing those scenes. And so to have your scene partner be your wife or husband, you've automatically got a connection. And we both give ourselves permission, or give each other permission to go to the place that the script requires. So in some ways, it's like, yeah.
Sarah, are you there? Sarah
Yes.
Highland, are you there? Say hello, tell us where you're from and how you watch A Place to Call Home, and share your question with us. Sarah?
Are you talking about me, Susan?
Yes, Sarah?
My name is Susan.
Oh, so I'm
Ryan.
sorry, wrong person. Susan, please tell us where you're from and ask your question.
Okay. Hi, Sarah and Craig. Really nice to meet you. I mostly am wondering in season
You have to
four,
speak up. Sorry, Susan, we can't hear you.
just wondering in season 4 whether everything made up to know it yet.
I think we're having trouble hearing you, Susan.
Can anyone else hear?
No.
No, it's interference of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's.
Maybe type it.
Yeah, we'll come back to you. David Bowles is here with us. David's somewhere in the boonies of Australia. I'm not exactly where, but I know it's far away from city life. So, David, say hello to Sarah and Craig, and share your question, please.
Hello, I'm David. I'm in near Yeppoon in Queensland.
Oh, yeah.
G'day.
I was just wondering how Jack will react after learning about what happened to Caroline in the previous season. How do you reckon he'll react?
Well, I can't give you too much information on how to react because that's, a spoiler alert. But I think if you kind of imagine how that would feel to have that happen to the woman that you love, and then take into consideration who Jack is, I think you'll probably be able to work out, just how he'll react. I really can't give too much information, David, because we're sort of bound, confidentially.
We'll have to kill you all.
Yeah. But yeah, no, obviously it does have great effect, a massive effect.
Yeah, the thing that has to be taken into account is also because of how much it's stake for George, the time and era, what's at stake, and what Jack's going through.
Yeah.
So there's all those logistics that potentially in today's world the reaction may be different, but now the reaction over there, all those things are on the table as well.
Yeah, you're not dealing with Sir Richard. He's kind of in some ways he's inextricably linked to the Blythes and to George's campaign. So yeah, that's probably all we can say, I think.
I'm wondering because George had to come to grips with what happened to Sarah, that she had been violated by men when she was at Ravensbrook, and there were at least two very compelling scenes where he's struggling with that whole idea, and it really threatened to tear them apart. I'm wondering if Jack and George get to have any conversation, kind of commiserate on the common experience and maybe get a little support from each other. But I guess that's telling us what's going to happen.
Well, I certainly hope so. I don't know. As I was sort of saying earlier, we have a broad outline of our story arcs, but scene by scene, the details, we don't know. We're basically working. We've just about finished the first block. We've got the scripts for the next block, episode 3 and 4, and we do a cast read through tomorrow. and then we've got a hiatus and we'll start shooting then, but we won't get the next block until be a few weeks away. So we're really working, bit by bit. So I would love to think that there would be, a scene with George and Jack.
But at this point,
connecting on that sort of level. But
only these two know what went down.
Yeah.
Everything else is kept secret from everyone at the where you see at the end of season 3.
Yeah.
Because Skype limits the number of people who can chat with you at a time, so many people wanted to be on this chat, and we really looked hard to find another way to get more people. But first of all, it is being taped so we can share it with everybody. But I invited people to submit some questions that we might not have otherwise covered. So if you will, I'd like to ask a couple of them.
Sure.
Craig, one of the most endearing relationships is that of Jack and Elizabeth. They have a long history. She's known him since he was a young boy. And can you, first of all, tell us about working with the great Noni Hazelhurst, and share with us a little bit about the relationship between Jack and Elizabeth?
Well, I love working with Noni, and I love whenever I get a scene, whenever I read a script and there's a scene with Jack and Elizabeth, it's awesome because, one of the, just knowing that essentially she is like his mother, I think he looks at her as his mother, and they have an amazing relationship because there's a lot of love and a lot of care, but he also doesn't stand for her, some of her ways. So in some ways he can be quite a good sounding board for her, but in working with Noni, she's gorgeous, and you just look into her eyes and they're
Those beautiful golden eyes.
like they're like gold,
They are gold.
and so I love working with Noni. I love having those scenes with those two characters because there is a huge history that you can draw on, and and the stuff that Bevan has told us about storylines that he has idea-wise for those two that haven't come to fruition, but they sit there with us and they sort of serve us when we do have scenes together. So he's created a really intricate history for them, which is connected on a very strong emotional level. So it's an absolute joy and pleasure to play those scenes with Noni.
Sarah, you also get to interact a lot with Noni, and as the mother of a daughter myself, the relationship between a mother and daughter, as loving as it can be, can get very complicated, especially when you have two very strong-willed people. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I do adore the relationship that's been set up with Elizabeth and Carolyn for that reason, that they've kind of come from the different ends of the spectrum in season 2, very forward-thinking and very traditional. They sort of go loggerheads with each other, and there's such a checkered past with obviously all the secrets that come into light with what's happened. And I love working with Noni because she's always so incredibly on form, every scene, every take of the scene, that you just know when you're going up against her, you've got to be on your good game. And every scene she'll offer something slightly different, but just as full. So it's a wonderful acting lesson working with her. And I always feel excited, like Craig said, when I get those scenes to go in and work with her. It's one of those very rare gifts, I think. So I feel very lucky.
I got quite a few questions, and there's always lots of discussion about the attention to period detail, particularly the clothes and the cars. Personally, I love Jack's car. I think it's a just what I would imagine he would be tooling around in. Um, uh, uh, Carolyn, you get to wear some quite fetching outfits, and I have to tell you that I have to tell you that somebody emailed me a question today and said, "Could you please ask Sarah about what she's wearing under her dresses? Does she have to wear a garter belt and stockings, or is she wearing pantyhose?"
Um, depending on the line, it's always about the line of the dress or the pant. So they're full pantyhose, but with the seam up the back, as opposed to the stocking and suspenders. Just purely because some of the silhouettes would then get a bit kooky with bumps and bands and stuff, and they're a lot easier to wear that way. But in the moment we're in really quite hot weather here, so to be in woolen pants and stockings and hats and gloves is
Very hot.
on these guys are in shirt, woolen suit,
Yeah.
all sorts of
Overcoats.
overcoats, hats. So
Yeah.
yeah, but no, the clothing. Lisa Ma is our costume designer, and the work is not only, some of them are authentic pieces that have been refitted, or if they fit perfectly, they're great, or they're made to us. And I know that I'm very, very lucky with the dresses and the suits that Carolyn gets to wear. I'm very grateful for that.
And I just wear brown.
And green and brown,
Sometimes green. but
multiple
mostly brown.
times.
And you have that great brown hat. I think the hats are absolutely fabulous. I think we actually did a whole series of postings where we showed every character with every hat that they had ever worn in the series. So people see absolutely every detail. And because we are using pictures over and over again, sometimes a picture, for example, we posted a picture of the two of you. I think that maybe that fabulous photographer, Luke Sembuli, is that his name?
Tembulia?
Yeah.
Semblia. I think it's a picture that he must have taken. It had been posted when we first got it, and today I posted it, and it was like nobody had ever seen it before. And there was a whole discussion about Carolyn's outfit and the way that Jack was standing. So fans see absolutely every detail.
Yeah, the detail right through from the production design, the makeup, the styling of the clothing. I love that. They've created a sort of a look and a feel for each of. Well, obviously, the men are a lot more similar because of the suit was the standard dress, but for the women, when you look at Sarah versus Olivia versus Anna and Carolyn or Regina, they're all really distinctive tones or qualities and palettes that they're working in, and I think it's a wonderful job of individualizing through that region and that era.
The costumes are absolutely fabulous. Before we go, can you share what you would like to see? I know you can't tell us specifics, but in terms of how your characters will evolve. You've got 12 episodes where a lot can happen. Personally, I'm predicting a murder, but aside from that, what would you like to see as part of the development of your characters, and what kinds of things would really challenge your acting chops?
That's a hard one because we kind of have been told what's coming, but I think it's an interesting one. I think Jack is always we talked about the PTSD earlier. I think one of his coping mechanisms is work. And I've always endeavoured when we're in the hospital to always have him doing something, always to be busy, and that's part of his mechanism. Just serve others, and I can forget about what's happened to myself. But then when Carolyn comes along and got together. In some ways, that's what I think Jack needed, you know, and to have that love. So it's interesting. It would be something to do with him and Carolyn, possibly a new life, possibly changing things up a little bit. But yeah, I don't really know. I think he's slowly changing through the relationship with Carolyn. So I'm really interested to see how much further that can go.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to Bevan, and that what I'm ready to see is his vision for this world, because it's his baby. That all those characters, and I guess keep pushing them down their trajectories of why they're so individual and why they're so unique. I really want to see where Carolyn ends up on hers, and now that especially that she has found love again, and how that that shifts and changes when there's another person that's involved, where you can no longer just do exactly what you want to do. You have to learn how to share while staying true to yourself. So I feel like we're honouring that, and I'm really looking for seeing that play out.
Well, your characters are certainly very loved by the many fans of the show. The audience is really rooting for you, both individually and as a couple, and that's not an easy. Yeah, it's not an easily achievable thing, and so everybody really appreciates it. Before we go, and I want to thank you so much for taking time from your Sunday afternoon, and I hope that maybe another time before season 4 starts that we'll get to do this again. But here's your chance. This is going to be posted to all of the fans, so here's your chance to speak to them and say whatever it is that you like.
Yeah, well, we're so grateful for the support that you guys give us, and it makes what we do so much more worthwhile, and just to know that what we're doing is getting received on the level that it is warms our hearts, and so we thank you so much.
Not only for the show, and I mean I think it is a beautiful show. It's a very subtle show, very sensitive show, and feel very privileged to be a part of that kind of quality of production. But also what is wonderful to share, say thank you, is the community that is not only just in Australia, but now, as we can see here, worldwide, this conversation around humanity and communication on this kind of level is expanding. It's really lovely to see a community talking with each other in such a way.
Yeah.
So feel very grateful to be sort of in amongst that.
For sure.
Susan, did you tell Sara and Craig that A Place to Call Home has arrived in the New York Times, has arrived in the United States on the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, Slate magazine? So you're getting getting well known
for sure.
We saw
the top 10.
The Wall Street. Yeah. We saw the Wall Street article. And we were absolutely chuffed with that.
And that's the second article in the Wall Street Journal.
It is, and I'm sure that you guys are also going to hear from the Huffington Post. The Huffington Post did a wonderful interview with Marta, and then they did one with Noni, and I'm in touch with the writer, and she is going through the list. She is loving the show, and you are going to hear from Huffington Post. I noticed just the other day, we have gotten 100 new members in the last 10 days, and I noticed that we now have a TV Guide editor and a writer for People magazine who is, jumping in. And I have to say that we Americans are doing a great job as your publicists, because we are bombarding all the writers with emails and entering polls and really working hard to get the word out there. And although I do not like the comparison of A Place to Call Home with Downton Abbey, it's a natural thing that writers who are lazy want to do. But the fact is that A Place to Call Home is now on PBS, which is the same outlet as Downton Abbey, and
Right.
people are really thirsty for compelling drama that they can relate to fill that void. So I think that in this coming year, that you're going to see the viewership, particularly in the United States, just grow tremendously, and
Yeah, that's wonderful.
it's exciting. So I'm looking forward to the first tour of the A Place to Call Home cast. When you come and you do the tour and you come to Los Angeles and then you come to New York and everybody gets to see you and it shows up everywhere. It's going to happen because we're determined to have it happen. So
That would be amazing.
We'll be there.
We'll be there.
Get your passports ready.
Yes. Well, we've got great.
So we'll see you there.
okay, looking forward to it. Thank you again so much. Sarah and Craig, you agreed to be judges for our essay contest. Wait till you see some of the entries. The entries are still coming in. We had to extend the deadline because so many parts of the world are just now seeing season 3. But
Right.
every single one of them is thoughtful and sensitive. Somebody wrote a 750-word poem just about one character. So it's really exciting. So we look forward to sharing that with you.
Oh, thank you to everyone for your passion and your support around obviously in Australia, because these guys kicked off the movement, the Save a Place for Home team. But then now with you, Susan, and everyone from all around the world, it's such a real honour to feel that level of support. It really is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, thank you for giving us such wonderful work. It would not be this successful. The word on the page is one thing, but if there are not actors to bring those words to life, nobody's going to watch. So on behalf of everybody, thank you very, very much, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good morning.